All right, let's bring you some analysis on those comments from President Trump there. Pierre Harski is an international news editor at France, and he's also an author. Pierre, thanks very much for speaking to France 24. This isn't the first time that President Trump has contradicted his own intelligence agencies. Talk us through, if you will, the strategy behind this contradiction.
Well, you have a clear escalation on both sides, both from China and from President Trump. But certainly, President Trump is on the offensive for two reasons. One is that obviously there is a clear background to it, which is the Chinese cover-up of the initial phases of the pandemic, and the fact that we still don't know precisely where and how this COVID-19 started. And so he has some firm ground on which to build. The second point is obviously that President Trump is trying to deflect attention from his own mistakes and his own responsibilities in the current disaster in the US. And China is the ideal culprit in a way. And there seems to be a clear strategy to win his forthcoming presidential election on the back of China. So this new escalation, without really firm evidence to support it, is clearly a domestic political trick.
I mean, how successful do you think a strategy like that is going to be? I mean, is it as simple as merely perhaps choosing some kind of scapegoat to hide the errors that have been made, perhaps some might say, by his administration?
Well, the Democrats have started building up on Trump's initial denial of the pandemic. You know, he used to say it's just a simple flu, and then he said it's going to die in April with the heat. And more recently, you know, this whole quote about digesting detergents, you know, which was very controversial. So there is an accumulation of fully recorded public statements that today look terrible compared to the disaster that's happening. So that's for him a usual way. If you're under attack, you counterattack with more noise, more spectacular attacks. And that's what he's been doing by raising the stakes against China, which obviously is unpopular since the beginning of this pandemic.
I mean, if we look at the side of the coin, Pierre, China has ramped up its own propaganda campaign over the COVID-19 outbreak, saying, you know, we strongly defend the way that we have dealt with this virus.
Yes, that's why I said China is the ideal culprit for Trump, because China itself it has been cornered into a situation where it doesn't want to admit that it covered up the pandemic at the beginning. It doesn't want even to say the truth about the figures. Everybody knows that the official figures in China are not real and are underestimated. And today, China refuses to accept any hint of investigation in Wuhan to know whether this epidemic started in a wet market, as is commonly believed, or in an accident in a lab. So China itself has found that the best defense is attack, and that's what it's been doing. And the US is obviously for them an ideal culprit, and domestically with Chinese public opinion, nationalism is really working.
I mean, along those attack lines, as you just mentioned there, China's also accused at the same time the UK and Australia of politicising this pandemic.
Yes, China refuses any idea that the foreign countries have any say about what's happening in China. And Australia, at the moment, Australia has had very close economic ties with China over the past 20 years with its mining resources. And so it's very dependent economically on China. And today, the Australian government is now asking for an international commission of inquiry into the origins of the pandemic. And China is really picking on Australia in a big way. So we have this incredible situation where you have a common enemy. I mean, the virus is a common enemy of mankind, and the world is more divided than it's ever been for many years.
OK, Pierre Harski with some analysis on Trump contradicting his own intelligence agencies and, of course, the response from China. For now, thank you.